Rapto is Gimel, and we are going to get a profound lesson in anatomy as a parallel, as a parallel to understanding the way things work. Lamaila. That before that, so not Is Gimel, the second paragraph in Is Gimel. So let's just try and give an introduction that will make sense of what's following, right? Yes, so you can follow. I don't think you heard the beginning of the Maamar. You didn't, right? No, you did. Oh, you've been following the shiurim till now? Yes. Okay, good. Good. All right. So the last thing we're talking about is contrasting the difference between the way things work down here and up there, notwithstanding that down here devolves from up there, yet the flow of cause and effect, or not information, but cause and effect differs. And quite simply, he says that Machshava Dibra Maisa parallels and devolves from Bria Yitzira Asiya. Bria is God's. So to put that in simple language, Atzilus is God's mind, Bria is God's thought, Yitzira is God's word, and Asiya is God's action. So in Ishtalshalos, it works. One level is linked with the other. A lower level only knows of, experiences its cause above it. It's aware of the whole chain that stretches back, obviously. But in terms of experience, it's linked like a chain, links in a chain with a level above it. And levels can't be skipped. You can't go from Bria to Yitzira, Atzilus, Bria to Asiya without Yitzira. Without the middle world, Asiya would be overwhelmed. So that's necessary and critical for the whole existence of Ishtalshalos. It's orderly and it cannot bypass the order. It's fairly obvious. Not so Machshava Dibra Maisa, you pointed out, just in brief, a person can think and act without the intermediary stage of speaking. That's the simplest illustration of this. Okay, that's what we said yesterday. He's making an observation that now all of this, why get into all of this? This is all to explain what? Chesed ve'emes. And a cryptic story quoted in Talmud Yerushalmi that Rabbi stated was only once in his life that he had kavanah in tefillah, notwithstanding that he was the sage, Rabbi Chia, number one, and number two, notwithstanding the fact that he, of all people, is cited in the Gemara, in the famous story with Rabbi Yehuda Hanas and Eliyahu Hanavi, as having the power of prayer on par with the office, no less. And he says, I never had kavanah except for one time, when he was pondering who enters the king first, this level, this rank, or another rank. Does it go from below to above or above to below? The Maamar doesn't even quote what he was pondering in that particular prayer. But at any rate, that needs to be understood. Okay, so now having said what we just did now, again, contrasting Machshava Dibra Maisa and their interplay with Ishtalshalos, a very powerful question is coming, an existential question, a very basic question is coming now at the end of this next paragraph, the last paragraph of the second paragraph of Is Gimel. Adam, can you just make it 21.5? We're all going to freeze here. It's one notch up. That's it. Thank you. However, having said what we did, namely, we made the point that Seder Shtalshalos is interconnected, cause and effect. No steps can be bypassed. One level is intimately connected with the one above it. Therefore, so even though, now as he analyzes the Ishtalshalos from this perspective now, and that is that any effect, any result, any consequence, as we said before, it knows only its cause, so that's its cause. So the parallel is seichel and midas for the human being, which is ila va'alu. The midas only know the seichel. Why do I love this thing? Because I appreciate its value. Why am I fearful? Because I understand that it's terrible. So the midah knows and is fueled by its cause. Now, so the cause is in such a way, this is a statement in the Gemara, which means yesh, it's translated yesh bechlal masayim, within 200, 100 is already present. Simple observable fact. So that means to say that whatever emerges down the road in this whole chain of reaction, of cause and effect, must exist and be incorporated in the original cause somehow. Latently, potentially, it must be there. It doesn't come out of nowhere. This is all a natural progression of cause and effect. So the cause is like the 200 that will produce the 100 or any other number less than 200. Clear? Now, therefore, what's the problem? Let's see at the end of the ice. First he spells it out. The very first cause, which is Atzilus. Atzilus is the creative, these are the divine forces God created with 10 utterances. These are the 10 spheres of Atzilus in general, and specifically the 7 days of creation are the 7 spheres, the 7 midas of Atzilus, from Chesed to Malchus. That's the first cause of Biyah. Biyah is Bria, Yitzira, Asiya, creation. So Be'ilo Elyoina Ha'itzarech Liyos Kol Ha'alulim Shlamati Men, obviously in the very first cause, incorporated, present within that first cause are all the results, the consequences that will then result from it, that are below it. And a fascinating illustration for us. Sweetness and bitterness that we find in fruit in our world. Now, I don't know why this illustration is only in fruit. I don't think it's exclusively fruit, but it's demonstrating it even in a very lowly dimension of our world, food, fruit. There's no sweetness or bitterness in inanimate objects, although there is, of course, there's salt in the sugar.
There's sweetness in music, there's sweetness in the thought.
No, I'm trying to say he wants to go lower. He wants to show all the way down the Nelam Hazet. So that's why he brings Peiris. I'm asking also in the inanimate world, there is sweet. Frozen? Am I frozen?
Just since the word sweetness, and then it froze for about a minute.
Yeah. Okay. So the sweetness that is present Are we good? Guys, we good?
Now we're good again. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it keeps freezing. No sound. Oh, you're muted.
How's now?
Now we can hear you and see you, and it seems fine.
All right, so let me know if there are any problems again. All right. So the sweetness that is present in fruits, again, he wants to illustrate the lowest level where sweetness and bitterness is found in one item, which is fruit. So this has to be found in Chachma. So how does it work? So from Chachma, what's the chain? What's the process? So in Chachma, Chachma is that potential spark of discovery of truth. So that will evolve to an articulated ideas, and that in the world of ideas, a particular idea can go two ways. It can be used to obligate or to what's the opposite? To vindicate, right? This classic example brought in Chassidus is Parshas Noach. The very idea, the very truth that man is governed by his evil inclination from birth is the reason to, well, just forget the whole thing or forgive him. Bring a flood or not. So from there, that then descends to the world of emotion of chayiv or zakai. So that's from seichel to midis, and then to the process of ishtalshelus, it then manifests in physical fruit, in the properties of the sweetness, which would be the schus, or the bitterness, the chiyuv, the chayiv. So, in Cain, conclusion, so obviously in potential, in a very latent way, the sweetness of the fruit is already present in the supernal seichel. Now, what's the question? Good, yeah, indeed so. What's the problem? We see that the sweetness of the apple, for example, it's not traceable. You can't trace it back to seichel. It's an apple. It's an independent identity. It doesn't come from anybody or any seichel anywhere. It's not incorporated in seichel, which is a completely separate identity. Okay, tzarich in the shaila. What do you start off saying? That everything evolves in a chain of command. So what's the shaila here? So all these things exist in Baruchnius, Lamaila, in Chachma Datzilis, and then through a profound process of Tzimtzum, etc., cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, and then manifests in the sweetness of the fruit or its bitterness. In the case of the apple is sweet. It devolves. But his question is, if it devolves, it has to be the same substance, basically. It's the same world. Seichel, midas, is the same world within the person, his understanding, his feeling. Here, this is something absolutely tangible and physical. How does it devolve? That seems to be the question. Again, in the words of the Maimah, it's a mahus b'fnei atzma, and it's not klula b'seichel. It means seichel even of atzilis, not the person seichel, of course not. It has nothing to do with the apple. We're talking about the seichel amayla, which is a mahus b'fnei atzma. It's a completely separate entity. How does it manifest in this physical sweetness? Okay, that seems to be the question. But there's more. A bigger question. To understand this, a bigger question. This, by the way, what he's asking now, to give you a heads up, is similar, it seems, to the question he asked. If you recall in the previous Maimah, Ava betanugim, when it comes to Ruchni, it's the love of God. It's described as a love of delight. Plural. It's one Eibishter. Who remembers the answer? What was the general answer to that? How I can speak of Ava betanugim, a love of delights in the plural, when there's one object of our delight, God. And the Lamhazi can love many things, delight and enjoy many things. But if we're talking Kedusha, it's one thing. If you love your wife, you love your wife. So loves, it's one. She's one wife. What was the answer, folks? Just without going to the whole hasbara, just the technical answer. Yeah, it's something a little bit closer to home. Like, that's a consequence. It doesn't address the pnimius of the question. It just gave it away. Pnimius and chitzonius. It's one address. There's layers. Pnimius and chitzonius. So I love everything about you. You. Pnimius, the chitzonius. It's all precious to me. Okay, I'm just putting this because the question to be asked now is a similar question, and we'll see how he answers it. It's a long mind, but a very haskaladik mind, it seems. We're kind of learning it together, so let's continue the journey. We have a bigger question. Not just asking the sweetness of the apple, it is devolves from Chachma Datzilus. They're different universes. Ruchnius, Gashmius. Similar question, he says, in general, and that is, Ketzad, this is an existential question, that is not the first place that the question is asked. The Mukabalim actually deal with this, the earlier Mukabalim, the Ramak and others, and that is, Ketzad nase inyan ha'yischalkus leprotim b'klol ha'seder ishtalshalus. How is it that one unifying truth gives rise to division and details, which is what defines Seder Ishtalshalus? How does oneness produce plurality? Division. For a simple existential question. Oneness produces oneness, not division. If you're a man of peace, you will produce peace, not division, not conflict. Like the division of machshava dibur u'maisa as it is, kefishu ba'olamus, which are, as you said earlier, gilma olamus biyah. How do we have division? Atzilus should create a unified world. And especially the division that we find down here. All of existence is made up of detail and parts and components. And the question is, he spells it out fast. It would appear that logic would dictate creation comes in the world of Atzilus. Atzilus is the world of unity. Now, what are you thinking? Unity? What's your question? What's your question? There's 10 spheres there already. There's already Ischalkus. What's he saying? Olam Achdus. But there's no Ischalkus in Atzilus. There isn't. Why? Notwithstanding the fact that there's 10 spheres, but not lost at all, not undisguised in Atzilus, which is the creative force. It's the first Ilah, and Chachma within Atzilus is the very first cause, is that this is the way God is expressing himself. The one God is expressing himself in these different ways. That's fine. That's not Ischalkus. They're not at odds with each other. There's no competition. So how is it that Olam Ha'achdos, Minayin, this refreshing question, Minayim nimtza yischalkus shalehem zeh mizeh b'madreges elyon v'tachten. How is it that we find in Ishtalshalus this division and separation, higher and lower? There's no higher or lower. That's even clearer. There's no higher and lower in Atzilus. The emes, Chesed, Gevura in Atzilus, it's not one lower than the other. They're all equally expressed, all integrated one with each other. Why? Because this is the way Hashem is expressing himself. It's all him. So how does oneness produce division? Yeah, general shaila, and a moededik, a very deep and highly developed and nuanced answer. Ready for the answer? Ready for the journey? Question is clear in summary. How does oneness produce division? It's like asking, how does goodness produce evil? It can't. So you've behektem. Yeah, we're going further. We're clear. Clear is clear in the question. To understand the question ever deeper, this requires profound havana vasaga. To understand the depth of the question. And as you said, it's not, this question is raised by the Mekubalim. The whole concept that gave birth to the understanding of the whole concept of tzimtzum, but what is tzimtzum? Is it something else? Not him, yeah, him. It's a whole, this cuts to the core of like what's reality. And how's creation the way it is? Okay, so let's begin. Ois Dalet, everybody has it? Yeah, Ois Dalet. V'yuvan. Behekter, I'm just thinking maybe we should do this one day. In Tanya Muveres, thinks what it's called, the old times of my old times Tanya. You should have Refuah Shlema, Erichasov, Mashonim Toivas. So in the Ha'aris in the back, of the Sefer, he deals with these things in a very clear, elementary way. So it's an incredible work. It was written for the Ben Torah, who is being introduced to Chassidus for the first time. He's our McGill student, but he's coming from the top tier yeshivas. He wants to understand, and he wants the sources of everything. So it's a wonderful explanation, wonderful work. So you've been to understand how oneness produces plurality by first prefacing what the pasuk says. The Abishah said, there should be an expanse in the waters, within the waters. And it should separate between the waters, creating upper waters and lower waters. The pasuk goes on to say, waters that are above the expanse, or the skies, it's often translated, and the water that is below the expanse. So what does all this mean? So what is water? As we learn in Tanya, in the Perek Aleph, water is associated with delight, lush delight, tainug. It causes to grow all delightful things. So that's the first thing is positing now, that the union of mayim is tainug. There is the upper tainug and the lower tainug, the upper waters and the lower waters. There's a supernal water that from they spawn or give rise to the supernal delights and spiritual delights in spirituality, in the divine. Ruchnis dike tainug. Included in Ruchnis dike tainug is the delight in learning and discovering a profound and beautiful truth, understanding. That's all part of Ruchnis dike tainug. And then there's the water below the expanse. The lower waters. This gives rise to the lower forms of delight or expressions of delight. Even in physical matters. What's in between? Things like music, and other forms of somewhat ethereal delight, not as ethereal or transcendent as the world of ideas, but it's still tanugim tachtoinim. But then there's the tanugim agashmiyim, obviously things like food and sensual experiences. All right, so summary. There's mayim elyonim and there's mayim tachtoinim. And varakiyo amavdil b'neiim. And the expanse is what divides and separates them. And that's what this ois now, this paragraph is going to explore and explain what is this expanse, this rakia. Let's begin it now. Nikra parsa mafsekes. It's called parsa, a veil that divides between what each side of it. As I mentioned, we're going to get, just looking ahead, a profound anatomy, human anatomy analysis, because you tell me why we're going to get now who commercial the chotzer hakovet. This is the, in English, where you said as a covet, the Torah calls it, you said as a covet, which we encounter in Korbanos, which you're all familiar with. I'll give you the English translation of it.
The lobe of the liver, they call it.
The lobe of the liver, okay. It's on top of the liver. So it's just literally a different color and sits on top of the liver. And it separates, he's going to say, between the lungs and the intestines. No, the translation here, I looked it up. I assume it's correct. What we're looking for is, where I put it. The adrenal gland, he said as a COVID. I don't know if it's the same thing or not. That's what this translation gave me. Literally, it sits on top of the liver, and above that is the lungs. So I'm asking you, why are we getting emotional from the anatomy? Which means translated.
From my own flesh, I see God.
Why? How is that possible? Why is that? And I just hit the nail on the head. Because we're all made. It's one of the most extraordinary psukim in the entire Tanakh. Nasa Adam B'Tzalmeinu Kid was saying we're made in the image of God, the form of God. Maybe there's a form and an image. What does this mean? The answer is yes, God chose to manifest a whole system of divine attributes, and the human body is a reflection of that in all of its details. So therefore, understanding about the human body works, and not just the body, but probing deeper the human soul, intellect, emotion, all of the emotions, etc., we have an understanding of das elokei avicha, the understanding of the way things work l'mayla. All right, so that what we will explore Be'ez Hashem again tomorrow.